This is Kugan Cassius for iFLTV. Absolutely delighted and honoured to be joined by Mr. Michael Moorer. How are you, sir, first of all?
Hey, I'm blessed. I woke up this morning to start my day. I'm good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, we can jump straight to it. Obviously, the last 2 or 3 days, the boxing world has been uh, in mourning for heavyweight icon George Foreman, who sadly passed away at the age of 76. Michael, my first question to you, like, forget boxing for a moment. What kind of person was George Foreman away from boxing?
A gentle giant. A gentle giant. He was a man of wisdom, man of faith, very educated when it comes to the boxing aspect. He was just a good guy overall. He was good for boxing.
How has been your relationship with him, like, over the last however many years? Did you keep in contact with George, Michael, or not really?
There were times where I reached out to him to speak to him. Yeah, we were on a friendly basis. Absolutely.
I mean, look, obviously, I'm not a fighter, but obviously, Michael, you had several fights and you fought kind of lots of rivals over many decades. That dynamic of being in the ring with someone, but you can still have a relationship with them is it's a bit weird to listen to because, but that's how
Yeah,
boxing is, that you can
right.
go in there and whatever happens, but after that, you can still maintain a relationship. That's why I asked that question. Yeah,
Yeah, just because you fight somebody doesn't mean you have to hate them the rest of their lives. It's just a part of work.
absolutely. Um, so from that era, the three from that era that people talk about mainly in Ali and obviously Fraser and now Foreman have all passed. So hopefully they're somewhere in a better place or looking over their lives, if you like.
Right. That'd be good. I mean, it's a sad day for boxing. They lost an icon, and he was somebody who a lot of people looked up to. And it's unfortunate that things like that happen, but it's a part of life, you know.
It is a part of life, and I suppose it will come to us all at some point. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, you're right. You're very right in that. It is a part of life. I mean, look, I know obviously the year of 1994 wasn't the moment wasn't the best for yourself, but how much of that build up to that fight with George do you recollect, Michael, from '94 back in Vegas?
Well, back in 1994. It was a great opportunity for myself to fight George Foreman. At that time, I felt that I could beat him. It was just so long ago. I don't really remember all that well, but um, I knew I could beat him. I just got caught. That's part of the game of boxing. You know, my hats is off to him. No animosity. It was never no animosity. It was just a part of the game, part of work. You win some, you lose some.
Do you remember anything about the build up to that fight and what were people kind of saying? Because obviously the much talked about point is the time period of 20 years since George was world champion before, and at the age of 45, what were people saying back then? Were they thinking that George could do it at that age, with such a long gap between winning heavyweight championships? Do you remember any of that?
Uh, I don't. Back then, it wasn't up to the people thinking that he can beat me. It was George knew that he can beat me, so he took the fight. And unfortunately, I was on the losing end of it, but it was a part of history.
It's one of the obviously the biggest parts of history, and not just obviously heavyweight boxing, but boxing in general. It was. I know I'm talking to you and you're being very kind of humble about, but you was obviously a part of it, but you was on the other side of it. But um, it is etched in history. That whole period and that whole moment is etched in history.
George, a lot of people looked up to George Foreman. He spoke very well. He knew the game of boxing, and he's going to be truly missed by a lot of fighters, a lot of fight fans that they grew up with George, you know.
I heard someone talking about this a few months ago, and they said, in a way, you might be able to relate and kind of comment on this, but they said, in a way, for guys like Joe Frazier and George Foreman, um, it was a shame for them in some respects that Ali was there because these guys were absolute legends and icons in their own right. But the fact that Muhammad Ali was there, who takes the scope as the greatest of all time, etc. What do you think about that? If I know it's difficult to say, but George and Joe Fraser were talking about two absolutely iconic heavyweight figures, but the fact that Ali was there kind of did put a cloud over their careers as well. Is that a fair comment, or what do you think about that?
You know, I can't really say anything about the past because that wasn't my era.
Mm,
My era was more little far advanced, more advanced, a little further ahead.
yeah,
Because I don't remember seeing those guys fight. I just see tapes, so I can't speak nothing about them, unfortunately,
yeah,
because they were icons of the game of boxing.
absolutely. I'm 43 years old, and I was born the year that Muhammad Ali had his last fight, so anything I've ever watched of Ali has always been on now YouTube, but before that on tapes, etc., etc. But even your fight with George Foreman, I was 13 years old, so
Right.
it's a long period of
You
time.
were born. You were born though.
I was born.
Yeah.
I was born.
You know, you heard the name,
Absolutely,
you know. So back then, I didn't hear the name. I was hearing names of modern fighters. I didn't hear names of the past fighters, you know. It's unfortunate, you know, there were some good older fighters, but that day and time at your era, that's when it all counts.
absolutely. How do you think George will be? I know you spoke a little bit about how he was away from boxing. How do you think he'll be remembered on both sides, kind of as the icon, as we keep saying he was, without a shadow of a doubt? But how do you think he'll be remembered in the years to come?
Hmm. Like I said before, he's going to be remembered as a gentle giant. Such a big man, but yet so soft. You know, so laid back, so humble. Just a overall good man.
Absolutely. Um, the question always gets asked. You've probably been asked it yourself a million times about comparisons between heavyweight eras, and I'm not a fan of this question when people start comparing, the 60s, 70s to what's now, or the 80s even.
Exactly. I'm the same way. I don't do that.
Yeah, the comparisons, it's almost like a fantasy question that we're never going to know the answer to. So it's almost
Exactly.
it's almost pointless. But what's your thoughts on today's heavyweight division? No comparison, just today's heavyweight division.
Today's heavyweight division didn't have the spark, doesn't have the spark like it had back in the mid 90s.
Hmm,
No way. Back in the mid 90s, the heavyweight division was on fire, big time. And there was there was a lot of guys there. Myself, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, Ray Mercer, Vander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, everybody, everybody.
when you look at that era in the 90s, as you pointed out, and look at American heavyweights currently, obviously the most notable name over the years that was flying the flag was Deontay Wilder. But what is for American heavyweights for the future? Do you think, Michael? We saw Jared Anderson, who obviously was beaten by Martin Bakole. He was one of the ones that was looking to kind of spearhead. But what do you think about the state of American heavyweights right now?
Um, I can't say anything about it because I haven't followed the heavyweight the heavyweights of American heavyweights. I don't want to sit here and say anything disrespectful or anything, so I can't touch on that because I don't follow it like I used to.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's
So, what does Michael Moorer do day to day now? What's a day in the life, a typical day in the life of Mr. Moorer?
what do I do? I mind my own business. I stay in my own lane and I rest very well.
Do you still train?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A little bit, here and there. Here and there, yeah.
You look like you train. That's why I asked.
A little bit.
The last one I'm going to ask you on this. What's your thoughts when you see people like Mike fighting these exhibition fights, and he's not the only one. Holyfield had one a few years ago, a couple of years ago. Roy Jones has had a couple. What do you think when these fighters from your era are fighting? Not in the same way. I'm not saying that at all. But what do you think when they're fighting these kind of what's deemed as exhibition fights?
They're their own people. I can't say nothing about it. If they want to do it, more power to them. I'm not doing it.
You retired back in 2007
Eight.
or 8, 2008.
Yep.
And you've never thought about any kind of comeback after the 2008?
For
No,
what?
I don't know. No, you
I,
tell me.
I,
Yeah,
light heavyweight world champ, three-time heavyweight champ, first Southpaw heavyweight champ. I've accomplished a lot. There's nothing else that I needed to do. Save it for these young bucks coming up. If they could break these records, let them break them because records are made to be broken.
absolutely. But it's good to listen to. Obviously, yeah, you achieved everything possible. So that level of contentness is there forever.
Exactly.
Okay, Michael, listen, I appreciate your time. What time is it over there in Florida?
5:21 a.m.
Oh, wow. I'm going to let you.
I already walked my 3 miles and I'm just chilling now, eating some fruit. Then I get my dinner.
Absolutely. 5:21. Wow. Um, okay, Michael, much appreciate your time. Thank you to Geraldine Davies as well, who set this interview up. And I hope you have a blessed day, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Michael Morrow, thank you very much for to IFLTV, and we'll catch up again soon. Okay,
You take care. Thank you.
Michael.